Here we go again. Hello fam, I am Starbraid. If you don't know me before, welcome to my channel. I do tarot readings as well on the side. Which reminds me, there is going to be a video here soon about, or unless I posted it already, about my intentions for this channel. However, today we are talking about a subject very close to my heart. About why I left Christianity. I have literally recorded this 10 times. I wish I was joking. I wish that a part of me was like, hot psych, but no, I recorded this several times, and it just seemed a lot harder than I thought it would. Because here's the thing. First out the gate, I want to say that, you know, not all Christians are, I'm not anti-Christian or anything like that. I have several Christians in my life that are wonderful, beautiful people who sincerely just want to love and be the best people they can be on this earth, and it works for them and they evolve from it. So I just want to say this out the gate. I do have a lot of trauma with the evangelical church and certain belief systems, but I do not hate Christians, so to speak. I can get sassy, and I admit that, but it's something I'm continually working on because of my experience, which I will be going over. So with that being said, this video is about how I left Christianity, or why. And my hope with it is that somebody knows that they are not alone, and that they are not, I guess you could say, like, they're not wrong for being true to themselves and honest with themselves for several reasons that I'll go over. So this is just my personal story, and I hope that in sharing it, I help someone else. I made some points, and these are the ones I'm going to have to stick to, unless I want to make this a series in itself. The trauma and the pain, you know, was just really, it was just real. And it's something that needs to be talked about. So here we go. I became a Christian when I was 13. I was not raised Christian, even though, like, I had a video of my christening, you know, born Catholic, but I was never pushed into being a religious person. I was never forced into anything. My parents never really did that, and I'm very, very grateful for it. And they're wonderful. Like, they've never forced me to be anything, and it really gave me room to explore. However, at a certain point in my life, I was only 13, but I had gone through so much even to that point that, you know, I just, you know, wanted answers. But also, I've always had this connection with God, so to speak, with Source. I don't mind saying God. I do say God. Source, higher power. Always had a connection. Always. It was ever present in my life, despite not being taught certain principles and stuff like that. What was ironic is once I became a Christian, it seemed like my family kind of followed. But, and this is, please bear with me, this is just a subject that I am very sensitive to. But I became a Christian at 13. I went to a local church with a friend, and I loved it. I loved it. I got saved in the same night. If you're not sure what that is, I mean, I would look it up. It's not that hard to find info on it. Got saved in the same night. I did genuinely feel different, in the sense that I felt like I really was reborn, that I was forgiven for all kinds of shit, and I was cleansed of all the BS of my past. The only problem with that is I wasn't taught how to face my past. And I was also thriving off codependent behavior. And those two together, religion and codependent behavior together, don't mix. I do have videos on codependency, just my experience. I can do educational videos on those if you guys would like me to. But those two were in the mix in going into this belief system. It was Assembly of God. So they were a form of Pentecostal, but you know, they didn't like wear skirts all the time, or they cut their hair, but they were, you know, speaking in tongues and stuff like that. I loved how radical it was. It felt so alive. And I was thrown into this world that I absolutely loved. I'm not going to lie to you. I wasn't forced. I loved it. I loved what I was learning. I loved God. Completely devoted. Anytime the doors were open, I was there. You know, and then I started growing up, and I still was very, very devout. But I started believing, you know, some of the teachings, you know, it's like you're in this position, you accept Jesus, and you live this life. It's your entire life, by the way. And I believed some really crazy things that, well, now I consider crazy. That includes the whole, I'll make a whole entire video on the purity culture in it. You know, the shame that comes with that, you know, I'll make an entire video on that. I believed that I was wretched, a sinner, but because of this ring, this purity culture, as well as just being a believer, I was no longer dirty, so to speak. And I know that people are like, well, how can that be bad? And it's because, here's the thing, it's putting a label on your mistakes. It's putting a label on yourself before you even gave yourself a chance to heal. Really face yourself, really love yourself, accept your flaws, and not just depending on an outward source to accept them for you, but to love yourself, and through that source, learn how to accept it for yourself as yourself. And that's where the codependency comes in. I feel and I see a lot of codependency in the church, and I believed in everything that they believed, and it worked for me. I'm very grateful for the lessons I had learned in the church. It opened the door to spirituality for me. It opened the door to getting in touch with myself again, and with God and the universe, and got me thinking even deeper. It definitely had a purpose in my life, and I would never take that back. Some of the best memories I have are with the people of the church and in those experiences. So I would never take that back for anything. But even so, even as a believer, some things just never resonated with me. No matter how hard I tried. And I would feel immense amounts of shame just because I would lie to myself and others that I believed in these certain things, like LGBTQ+. Never thought there was anything wrong, ever, never, ever in my entire faith. It just never, you know, the whole Abraham sacrificing his son. I had a lot of trouble with that story. The whole idea that at the end of my life, there's going to be this screen where it shows all of our sins in this lifetime, and like everybody's going to watch it. And I was just like, oh no. You know, at that time I was very, fear driven, despite being taught not to fear. What I've viewed on dating, that's another thing. I'm trying to put this in a way where I just don't know if I can truly fit it into a video. There were so many radical things, unhealthy things that I believed that still affect me today. And it all started with a promise of love and acceptance, and turned into something else with my very vulnerable heart and mind. And I don't think anybody had any intention on hurting me. I don't think there was any true ill intention from anybody. I truly believe that these are just people living out what they believe. And that is perfectly fine. What stirs my soul in all the wrong ways is how it has a long-term effect on those like-minded, like myself. People who never get out of it, who never really truly think for themselves, and they never truly question anything. They love this box. They love that someone can tell them what to believe, because then they don't have to put any effort. They don't have to think too deeply. It's too scary. It's too dark. It's too deep. And they don't want it. And that is fine. But when they start inflicting pain upon others, and they start inflicting beliefs on others because their world is just going to be so shaken by someone who thinks and feels differently, especially if they were once in the church and leaves, that is something differently. And this brings me to, and by the way, I didn't think this way when I recognized how I was kind of moving away from the church. Now, I was completely devout most of my life. Like, I was 13 and I left that belief system at 24. I was 24, 23, 24. So at least 10 to 11 years under my belt. I was in the ministry. I did sing, and I was also working with children, and I loved it. However, I never really felt like I fit in. And it's not that I desperately wanted to. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. I can't tell you that I ever really did. I was involved in a ministry, a college ministry, and I would go visit other campuses, and just in hopes that maybe something would just like a light bulb. And man, like, this is exactly where I belong. And nothing resonated. So one day, when I remember it was a random day, and I wish I could give you a specific date, but I can't. This is in my earlier 20s. I'm 27. And I just remember waking up, and I was praying like I did every morning. And some of the stuff I realized that I was praying, I didn't believe anymore. It was ritualistic in the sense of I was just saying it and not feeling the words anymore. I was not true. It just wasn't there. Okay. And then I thought, I'm just in a dry spell. Okay. I'll figure this out. I've been through this before. It's no big deal. I'll get through it. I just got to keep going. And unfortunately, 3 years later, it never went away. And it was eating me alive, mixed in with other things that were changing in my life, and mixed in with the realization of my codependent behavior, as well as just growing as a person, recognizing things that just are no longer a part of what I believe, no matter how hard I tried. I begged, I pleaded, I cried for God to save me, because I didn't want to be separated from God. And when I say that, it's not in fear of going to hell. To be honest, I've never really feared hell. The only thing I feared was being separated from love. Because love was everything. God is everything, and in everything, and everywhere. And I just didn't want to be separated from that. And the life I had, there was a lot of love, but there was a lot of pain too. And it was because of love that I was able to overcome. So the thought of being separated from the source of love just paralyzed me completely. But I could no longer ignore the fact that there were certain things and beliefs I did not resonate with anymore. And I could tell you all day long that I resonated with them, and I could tell you all day long that this is what I believe, it is the absolute truth. And you know what? I'm fucking lying. I'm lying to you. I was lying to myself. I mean, and it's so funny what we do to make other people comfortable and even ourselves comfortable. Our comfort sometimes is so reliant on other people, we don't even realize when we're being eaten up by this lie in itself. So then I came to a breaking point. And it came at one of the heaviest prices. And my world flipped upside down. And it wasn't because of this that I left Christianity. I left Christianity before this. There were even people who came to me and said, your life pretty much flipped upside down because you stopped believing in God, when I never stopped believing in God, but because I wasn't a Christian anymore. So I guess you could say my breaking point for sure was in the college ministry. I didn't want to go to this retreat. Did not want to go. I knew where I was headed. I was trying, at this point I wasn't not a Christian, but I was stepping outside of it just to gain a fresh perspective because I wanted to be authentic with God. I wanted to be as authentic as possible. And I ended up going to this retreat where eventually it was said out loud that if you don't believe in X, Y, and Z, you don't even claim that you know Jesus. Do not claim that you love Jesus because you don't. Don't even say that you believe in God. And that broke me. That was it. Because a few of those certain things, I didn't believe in the same way anymore. And what I was told in that moment, because I didn't know how to differentiate at that point between what someone else said based on scripture and all this. I had no clue how to just kind of think for myself just yet. And so I took this as I had no place with God. I was doomed. Like this is my fate. I'm going to hell for something that I can't lie about anymore. I'm just curious as to what Christians do to people or what they think. You know, it's like, if you just don't, you don't. And faking it for 3 years definitely doesn't help. And then I'm doomed to go to hell. And you get to tell me how to think. You get to tell me how to feel. You get to tell me what I believe. Who do you think you are? I'm just saying, if you're a Christian watching this and you honestly believe that, I don't know who you think you are. Because that kills the souls that you feel you're trying to not necessarily save, but kind of bring to light. There's nothing to bring to light if you kill their soul. But at that point, I wanted to run outside. It was like a campground. And I just wanted to scream at the sky, like, is this who you are? Like, God, is this who you are? Are you that insecure about little old me? And are you so, is this everything you are? Because if so, like, screw you. I don't want any part of it anymore. I'm going to be punished because I can't lie anymore. But you tell me not to lie. No more. I can't do it. That was it. Followed up with someone, I was starting to create personal boundaries for myself after that. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't just like go to an event like this despite what I knew what was best for me. And then a certain scenario where probably now I would have acted differently. But it wasn't rude. It was just me putting up boundaries. Someone invited, someone had a friend who was going through a hard time that I wasn't wanting to be associated with necessarily, brought them to my house, to my doorstep, then asked me if it was okay. And I said no. And I was told to check my heart and see if God was there. And that was the pivotal moment where I realized that God was there, but not Christianity. And that's when everything changed. Everything. My life flipped upside down. And you know what's funny? Not once did I believe it to be a punishment. Everyone else did. Not once did I see it as I was being punished for leaving that behind. I saw it as a lesson, and that changed everything. My world was no longer what it once was at all. And I spoke that into the universe. I spoke that to God before it ever happened. Be careful what you ask for. Your words have power. But I never learned to cope with that in such a way before that moment. So my world flipped upside down. Let's just say everything that once was no longer in its most literal form. It was the darkest time of my life. I went through a spiritual death. I went through, people calling me a heretic, going to hell. People who would once wrap their arms around my neck no longer would dare, because I was such a disgrace, apparently. But for it, I'm grateful. It showed their true colors. And I'm not saying that all Christians do, because they really don't. I just want to point that out. I'm really glad that I'm redoing this. Because that isn't what Christianity is. Despite not being a Christian anymore, I understand what Christianity was meant to be. But even so, even after it all said and done, I still can't go back. So that brings me to where I am today. I was a lot more emotional in other videos that I attempted to create on this. I may redo this one, I may not. If you can see this, obviously I chose this one. But this is just a basic breakdown of my journey with Christianity and moving away from it. If you are watching this because you're afraid of going to hell, do you believe in hell? Number one. And you're not meant to live in fear. And I think that it is the most crippling thing to live in fear. And fear for your soul at a constant. The journey, in my personal experience, is about becoming the greatest version of yourself. And with that comes that light so that you can help others. So you can transcend. You have contracts here that you are meant to fulfill. And you have a choice whether you want to fulfill them or not. That's up to you. But, especially being a witch, like out of the broom closet, being a very, very devout Christian before, I understand that you're conflicted. And I was researching videos and everything in the beginning of my journey. And can I just comfort you that it is okay to cry? It's okay to mourn, because you are probably mourning your former self. You may be going through a spiritual awakening, a spiritual death. Just know you are not alone. Search for communities. Learn to love yourself and validate yourself. God, the God that I know, the source, the creator, does not hate you, is not as narcissistic as we believe God to be, and insecure. And it's okay to be yourself. It's vital. It's essential for a fulfilling life. To be yourself and be real and be honest. And that the pain that comes with it will pass. And not only will it pass, once you transcend it, your eyes will open in a way that you never thought possible. The biggest thing is putting the effort and loving yourself truly and figuring out what that means. I will talk more on Christianity, but this is just a basic breakdown, and even then it was 25 minutes. There were certain things that I was taught that I will touch on in Tea Talks, just because I feel like it's very, very important that we kind of, I guess you could say, clarify some things. But this is the basic breakdown of how I became a Christian into today. Through a lot of work, transformation, pain, and heartache, but I am happy. I am happy. My life's not over yet. I'm still building, I'm still creating, and so can you. So I love you guys. For those of you who I hope this give you some sort of hope, know you are loved, know that you are infinite, and that you are enough just as you are. And you are worthy of love, including your own. So with that being said, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.